Welcome back. It's Africa Update on Trust TV, and I'm your host, Chiamaka, Nwafor. And as I said before we went on that break, there were major celebrations on the continent. It was the Africa Day earlier in the week, and then on May 28, it was the the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, celebrating its 50th anniversary. Now, in the studio with me to discuss these issues, it's Ambassador Haruna Warkani. He is an ambassador to the ECOWAS, a former ambassador to the ECOWAS, representing Nigeria. But before we get to the conversation, how do this themes Africa for this day, for this year's Africa Day, is actually the year of justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. Now, the chairperson, the key person driving that is the president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama. Let's hear his speech.
Fellow Africans, esteemed leaders, brothers and sisters of the African continent, it is with great honor that I address you today on the occasion of Africa Day 2025. As we gather in Addis Ababa and connect across our vast continent and beyond, we celebrate our resilience, our rich heritage, and our unwavering spirit. This year, our celebration is particularly significant. The African Union has declared 2025 as the year for justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. As the AU champion for this critical cause, I'm deeply committed to working with you all to achieve this vital objective. For too long, the legacy of slavery, colonialism, and neocolonialism has cast a long shadow on the lives and progress of Africans and people of African descent. These historical injustices have left deep scars. Reparations are not merely about financial compensation, they are about acknowledging the profound and enduring damage inflicted upon our people. They are about confronting the uncomfortable truths of our past and taking concrete steps to rectify these wrongs. We seek justice. Justice that encompasses a comprehensive range of measures, including official and unequivocal apologies from the nations and institutions responsible for perpetrating these historical injustices, addressing the crippling debt burden that continues to stifle economic growth in many African nations, a direct consequence of exploitation and unfair trade practices, providing resources and expertise to empower African nations to achieve sustainable development and participate fully in the global economy, returning stolen artifacts and cultural treasures that rightfully belong to our heritage, investing in the educational initiatives to promote a deeper understanding of African history, culture, and contributions to the world. This is not a simple task. It requires courage, determination, and a unified front. It requires us to engage in meaningful dialogue with those responsible and to advocate tirelessly for our rights. I call upon my colleague African leaders, civil society organizations and youth groups, and members of the diaspora to join hands in this important endeavor. Let us work together to build a future where justice prevails, where the wounds of the past are healed, and where the potential of every African and person of African descent is fully realized. Let Africa Day 2025 be a turning point. Let us reaffirm our commitment to building a continent of prosperity, opportunity, and equality for all our people. Let the pursuit of reparations be a testament to our resilience, our determination, and our unwavering belief in a brighter future. Happy Africa Day. Let us move together, united in purpose, towards a just and equitable future for all Africans and people of African descent.
Now, Africa Day is celebrated on 25th of May every year, and this year was our 62nd anniversary. Actually, it's a day where the Organization of African Nations was created, the OAU, African Unity, but now has become the African Union. So in the studio with me, you've heard the speech of the president of Ghana. And, you know, just to say, in trying to celebrate with the people, I decided to wear the colors that are more prominent on our flags. That's the yellow and green and the black as well.
Yes,
so, yes, happy Africa Day to all Africans out there. But back to the conversation. What do you think about the theme and what do you think about his speech?
Well, thank God, let's say, African leaders have finally accepted to set up this or recognize the Africa Day. And for it, the declaration on the need for reparation, redressing slavery, colonialism, neo-colonialism, and let us also say neo-colonialism, because colonialism continues up to date. So the speech has encompassed all that we actually need in Africa for redress from the Europeans, particularly, but including the Arabs.
Okay.
Yes. The looting of Africa did not start and stop with West Africa. It also was done in East Africa. So from Arab countries to India, Africans were also shipped for slavery along that coast line of Africa. And therefore, slavery encompassed almost all parts of Africa, minus perhaps North Africa. Therefore, African Union leaders needed to have done this long time ago. I think here we also need to recognize the efforts of late Abiola, who wanted to become president of Nigeria, and one of his first elements of action was reparation. And therefore, even his killing, let me put it in quotes, would have, had been alleged to have been partly responsible for what had happened as a result of his struggle for reparation. It is not going to be easy for African leaders to pass very good speeches. What we might be seeing is a very, very daunting task of confronting the European Union, because almost all the countries are guilty of slavery, colonialism, neo-colonialism, and modern-day colonialism that is still ongoing. Because the looting of African minerals, for instance, is still a form of colonialism, led principally today by France. And we need to confront this very, very frontally. So the Ghanaian president, having been appointed as the leader now of this reparation movement, is apt because Ghana had a very rich history of this colonial history with relics at the Gold Coast, as it was called then, and you could still go there and see things that ordinarily will make you weep as an African. If Clinton came here, came to Senegal, saw the final port of no return, and could not help it as a human being, seeing how humans were shipped like sardines, packed very neatly in rows, and were taken to America. Anyone that died along the coast, along the trip, was just thrown into the sea for the fish and what have you. So the humanizing experience of Africa is beyond belief. And so when we say we are now going to ask for reparations, it is going to be a very huge task that African leaders need to wake up one after the other and come together. Thank God the African Union is pursuing this, not a single country, because all they had wanted were to settle maybe some countries quietly. But now that it is an African thing, I think, yes.
So the colonial masters themselves were already thinking of settling out some people quietly.
Sure. They looked at it that come one day, whether we like it or not, this criminal injustice cannot continue to be wished away forever. Africans are going to wake up one day and start asking questions that might be very difficult to answer. For instance, Ghana planned to celebrate 100 years history.
Okay.
The Ashanti Kingdom lost their golden stool of the Asantehene, the king. The king had a golden stool carved out of gold. The British came and removed this forcefully. Today, this golden stool is in London. The Asantehene kingdom is asking for the stool to come back, for it to use it as a symbol of that celebration. Britain is saying they cannot relieve this stool to Ghana.
Why?
Except if Ghana was going to pay a huge sums of money as an assurance of a return of this tool back to London after the
So
celebration.
you come to my house.
Yes.
You steal something that belongs to me.
Yes.
Hold on to it for hundreds of years probably.
Exactly.
And now I've decided to take back my property and
Yes.
you're asking me to give you some sort of holding money.
Precisely.
To borrow it.
Yes.
And then return
After you return. Or a replica of that stool. That's all. You can see the kind of inhumanity in the typical European setting. That is what we face. Now let's ask the simple question. All the artifacts looted from the Benin Kingdom around 18.
Yeah. Sorry, just to cut you short. That last week on the program, we had a story where some people in Dutch, in Europe actually, tried getting ready to send back those bronzes back to Nigeria.
Yes. Now, these artifacts, bronze, silver, some even in gold, were stolen and agreed to have been stolen. They have been on display in museums all over Europe. And these countries collect get pass fees for people to come and view these artifacts. Every day, 24/7, these museums are open and are taking gate fees. Only God knows how much aggregate gate fees have been collected for people only to see these artifacts that were stolen. So if when you confront Europeans to say you are thieves, the reaction would be no. But they came here, they saw this technology, they saw that we were better.
Yes.
We had talents that had been displayed in the creation of this artifact. They didn't teach us these things. They came and met us. They saw that we have already done something beyond belief.
Okay. You know, so we're talking about this now, and it gets me wondering how people that were able to do these things without even some sort of, in quote, formal education, but were able to create these statues, these bronzes, these artifacts that some other person came to carry out. How did we let ourselves become taken over, become enslaved?
Well, there are so many factors, really. There are so many factors. I think part of it was the feeling that you saw someone with a very contrast skin, white from black, and had the power of the gun. The gun. We still had our bows and arrows. They came with the gun. That made the difference. Right. And for that, they were able to defeat our forefathers and able to loot. But justice has to take its course one day. And we definitely have to ask for these rights to be granted back to us. Because like these artifacts, there's no way you can place a value on any one of them. Because like we said, if since 1870-something, they have been collecting money from these artifacts every blessed day to this day, you will wonder how much money we are talking about that they have realized from people coming to just see. They are not touching, they are not taking, they are not doing anything, just to see. Now, this has been like pervasive across European countries. There's no country in Europe that will be innocent of this. Britain was the center and remains the headquarters of slavery and what have you.
No.
Forget about the fact that, yes, they started the slavery, anti-slavery abolition and what have you movements. Forget about that. What they have done, particularly King James of England, who happens to be the largest slave trader of his time and of all times, having been very influential in the King James version of the Bible and what have you. See, it's quite, it's quite ironical, that his name still rings a bell in the church movement.
Wow.
And here is someone who is truly a criminal.
Okay. Well, that's a very, very, very heavy one there. But, you know, just before we move on from going on a short break to move on to the other conversation, now, what form of reparations do you believe is more ideal, financial, cultural, or institutional? Well,
I think the reparations, to be sincere with you, would be comprehensive. It has to be very, very comprehensive, because financial will be too little, too late.
And how many people do you want to pay off anyway?
Too late, too little. But comprehensive in the sense that from a renewal of our relationship with the Europeans, we need to renegotiate a relationship with the Europeans.
Maybe for the financial bit, they could start with cancelling all the debts.
No, well, cancelling the debts are debts that we even paid them money. We are still losing money to Europeans. If Africa shuts down totally today, Europe will shut down. Because they are 100% dependent on Africa for their survival. They don't produce any natural goods, agricultural or mineral.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So anything, technology that you see in Europe is actually dependent on African something that was removed from us here, agriculturally or mineral based. So the looting continues. They have only modernized the language, approach, and what they are doing without we African leaders also. So what we first need to do is African leaders need to decolonize their mind before we even start.
Yes.
We need to understand that we are at a receiving end. We are being looted. We need to know this very clearly.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a very vast conversation, and you know we will go on and on. But let's go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll look at the other celebration on the continent. That's the ECOWAS Day at 50. Just stay with us.